Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode. I'm your host, Brandon Cobb, co founder of HBG Capital. And today I've got Jason Balara on the show. He's the CEO and co founder of the Lark Capital Group. Jason's focus is an impact driven investing through multifamily real estate and small business acquisition within the Lark Veterinary Impact Fund. Guys, we're going to talk about small business acquisitions today. We're going to talk about acquiring real estate, building portfolios. How do you get around owning real estate and kind of being that full-time investor, but dealing with the cash flow issues that can come from that? Jason's perfect guy to talk to because he's invested in over 700 multifamily units. He's in the Atlanta, Phoenix market. He's done student housing development. And they also own over 400 units of self-storage in the coastal Mississippi area. So a lot to get to today. Jason, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Brandon. I'm excited to talk. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, this is very interesting because you've solved an issue that a lot of real estate investors have. Most people who quit their job and they go full-time real estate, they quickly learn that there's not a lot of cash flow associated with, especially in multifamily. Like even the guys that have like 15,000 units under contract, most of the cash flow goes to the investors in that group, and you make your money when that asset sells. Now, if you got your own in-house property management company, that didn't help out with cash flow. But you have a very unique edge here. You are coupling the acquisition of these small businesses to help out with the cash flow and create a revenue source to funnel that money into real estate to keep more of the active income that you're making from those businesses and benefit from the depreciation. So I'm very interested in getting the strategy with you. You're also still a full I don't know if orthopedic veterinarian surgeon is the right one, but you're a surgeon for animals. I do know that is your full-time role, so I'm curious how you were able to manage that. Before we get into all this, that's a mouthful. What's your story?
Yeah, and honestly, it all ties together. So I think it'll actually kind of clarify a lot of that. But yeah, I'm a veterinary surgeon. I have been for 20 years now. Most people either know me as that, a veterinary surgeon, or they know me from being a teenager working in construction and getting into real estate at a very young age on the residential side. So a lot of people know one or the other about me in the past, and what sort of, to condense the story, it all ran in parallel. Like real estate, construction, going to vet school, being able to afford to go to vet school, pay for my living expenses, all of it, it all was happening kind of at the same time. Now, there were different parts of my life where it was more one or more the other. And certainly, I finished my surgical residency in 2008, was very, very focused on that career, for the most part, outside of our own homes. So we did a number of like live-in flips, where I kind of put those back experiences in real estate and construction to use. And then 2020, we had our oldest son at that time was then a year old, and I realized I'm really working a lot. I'm really away from home a lot. I'm on call a lot, and I just didn't want that life for my kind of family at that point anymore. And so I wanted to make a shift to get more heavily into real estate, investing, and that's when I came across syndication in the multifamily space and really traveled down that road, for a number of years. The the interesting thing is, the way that the fund was born was based on my experiences from like 2020 to, say, call it 2023, because we all had, some pretty good times in real estate from like 2020, late 2020 through 2021 into mid 2022, and then kind of the whatever cliche you want to use, but things came to a bit of a screeching halt. And so what happened at that point is, I up until mid 2022, I had a W2 full-time W2 job. I also was doing some mobile surgery on the side, which involved going to like your family veterinarian's clinic and doing some surgeries there. But it was very much like, hit or miss here and there. And then I had, at that point gotten very heavily into real estate and was just super busy. And I decided it was time to leave the W-2 job because I didn't have time to really do all three anymore. And I wanted complete control of my time. And then they started raising interest rates and everything stopped. And so we went from actually having pretty decent passive income because I went so heavy into investing both in my own deals and passively in other people's deals to almost all of it going away in a pretty short period of time.
Yeah.
And so I realized, okay, we got to do something to make some money. So my options were go back to a W-2 job, but I knew that meant the same kind of lifestyle and time involvement, or I could ramp up my mobile surgery business. And so I actually got a business coach to help work through that. And we created a very real business about out of it and made, revenue goals and started
Yeah.
having P&Ls and things like that I hadn't really put a lot of thought into up to that point because it was really just kind of side income. Um, and then I realized how powerful that was, how quickly we could pull levers to increase revenue in that business. And then around that same time, early 2023, a mentor of mine, we got together for lunch and she asked me, what are you going to do now? What's your next real estate venture? And she suggested that I do a fund. And I was really pretty hesitant at first. And then I thought, well, can I combine the two? Can I combine because I had when I realized that in my own surgery business, I thought, well, maybe if I myself just went out and bought businesses, I could increase our income. And then I was like, after she talked to me about a fund, I was like, well, why don't can I do that like at a fund level? Can I do that for investors? Because we brought up the point about cash flow, like cash flow from real estate had gone down a lot, if not away completely in a lot of deals. And so, but real estate still has, even when it's not cash flowing well, appreciation, tax benefits. Like there's still a lot there to make it worth a worthwhile investment. It's just probably not currently money you're going to live off of unless you already have like millions invested. And so I thought, okay, well, can we bring these businesses together with the real estate within a fund to create, that inherent diversification and use the businesses as the cash flow and then, appreciation over time. And so uh, I reached out to my SEC attorney. Turns out you can do that. There are certain regulations and stipulations about the ratios of which that has to be within the fund, but ultimately you can do it. And so we created the fund with that in mind. And so it's a lot. I'll pause there and kind of let you let you
Yeah. So
fire some questions or what.
is this a hybrid fund for business acquisition and real estate?
Correct. Yes.
Wow, interesting. And so they're married together. This is the first time I've heard of something like this. So why how did you first see the opportunity to acquire businesses? That because that's like a very high level thing. That's like private
Yeah.
equity, that's not
Yeah.
something that yeah, it's not like flipping houses. You just go, I see HGTV. Let me go try to buy a house and try to kind of flip it. And everyone's kind of got an idea. That's usually the
Yeah.
gateway drug to real estate. I mean, that is a very sophisticated venture, or maybe not. Maybe I'm overcomplicating it. How did you see the opportunity there?
Well, commercial real estate, effectively, each property is a business, right? Like,
Yeah,
we buy it. They have, you know, financial statements, you have profit and loss, you have a business plan. You should, I guess, with all of these things with each property that you buy. So each one is a business. And I had been very, very much a DIY guy until I got into syndication. And it took me a minute to like back my way out of that and look at it more from a CEO role. And then you can start to look at these as each property is an individual business. So with that and the fact that I already had a business, my surgical business, it it made sense to me when I started to see some of it pop up on, social media and things. Some people were starting to talk about business acquisition, talk about, the baby boomers are the largest business owning generation in history, and many of them are approaching retirement and may not
yeah,
necessarily have a succession plan. Like and so a lot of businesses, I think people don't realize, like a lot of businesses just close. Like they just
Yeah.
literally just go away.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of opportunity there. There's also, I would say, I don't know if everybody would agree with me. I would argue that underwriting a business is probably easier than underwriting a like a multifamily deal. Because a lot of what we do in multifamily is based on projections over time,
Mhm.
and the sale prices are often, especially like when prices were skyrocketing, but sale price is often based on what can I create here. And for whatever reason in the business world, and this may change as it gets more notoriety on the internet, but like in the business world, it's very, very much on in-place financials. And the I was able to take that piece of information and actually apply it to my fund. So when I modeled out my fund, I had, sort of the traditional what we expect a multifamily deal to look like right now. And all I did was layer on the cash flow from the business on top of it. I didn't look at an exit strategy, or I didn't model in an exit strategy. I didn't model in, oh, this business will be worth, we'll buy it at 2x and it's going to be worth 5x. I didn't model in an equity roll up, all of which are things that can happen, but that's not where the projections are for the fund. And so therefore, I see what we're projecting out of the fund as worst case scenario. And we can do even better than that, pending what we decide as an exit strategy with the business. So um, it it was a little bit of, I didn't obviously didn't think of the idea, like people have been buying businesses, but
Mhm.
when you start to realize that they're all around you, and like, especially when I'm not talking about buying like $100 million businesses. We're talking about
Yeah.
buying like
Mom and
small
pop.
mom and pop, main street businesses where it's like a nail salon, a laundromat, a car wash. For me, I have a construction background, so construction businesses, like those things are very accessible. And sure, you could start it on your own, but ultimately, if you can come in to purchase a business that's already cash flowing and
Mhm.
keep it, all you have to do is keep it the same. You just have to not screw it up, and you can have a pretty successful scenario there versus, a lot of people starting from scratch a business might be, I forget what the statistics are, but a lot of them do close. But you can go out and find a roofing company that's been in business for 20 or 30 years, and all you have to do is step in and like make sure that it continues to run and be
Mhm.
making money there. So it's a lot of people have used those businesses, those owners have used them as lifestyle businesses, and they have really good lifestyles. And so you can step into those roles, if you have a little bit of knowledge about business, and I guess preferably a little bit of knowledge about whatever industry that business is from.
How are you finding these mom and pop businesses for sale?
There's a couple websites. Biz by Sell is the first one that comes to mind. That's probably the most used, most noted. There are a number of them out there. Also, it's just like real estate. You can approach from an off market standpoint, right? Like, who do you know in your network? Like I said, I've been in construction in some capacity for most of my life. So like, we renovated our house here. I know all the subs that I used. Anything I didn't contract out, like I can talk to those guys because I've been in their shoes. And so it's like I I have friends that are HVAC guys. I have friends in plumbing. I have friends that are general contractors themselves. And
Mm.
it's like, hey, what anybody who wants to sell their business, I can go that route. But it's, you can also just get on Biz by Sell, put in search criteria for whatever location and industry, and you'll have a bunch of things pop up.
But aren't those businesses, from what I've seen, solely dependent on the current owner? In other words, you're usually buying into an owner operator, right? And if you remove that person, then it does not run on itself, right?
No. Yeah.
How are you combating that?
So some are that way. Some are, you're definitely, buying yourself a job. But you'd be shocked at how, like I said, a lot of these guys that have been, again, I'll speak to construction because that's what I know well, but a lot of these guys have been in the business for a really long time, they're not they're not getting on the roof anymore. They have foremen, they have estimators. They might be doing the back office stuff. They might be going around to jobs here and there, but a lot of them have developed a real lifestyle business. And like the example I'll use, this is a real life example because we're under contract. I can't share too many of the details, but the seller doesn't live in this state, and he has the business runs for him and churns out cash flow for him, and he goes on cruises all the time. Like he did put his time in, he did put his work in, 20, 30 years. He hasn't tried to grow it in 5 or 8 years. And so it's a nice scenario because there's one, you can literally step in, keep it exactly the same without a whole lot. And two, there's plenty of opportunity for growth. And that's shockingly available, I guess I would say. It's not every deal. And there's going to be, you know, I don't know tech at all. And I see people that I'm a part of a business acquisition mastermind. Like I see people going after tech businesses and things like that. And I'm like, I don't want anything to do with it because I don't understand it. And their multiples are really high because that's how it works in that space. But like, it's not, it's not hard to find a laundromat, a
Yeah.
nail
Car
salon.
washes and stuff like that. We there's a guy here locally who has like 300 of these. I can't remember what kind of car wash, a certain brand that he's got, but he did really well because he realized that after he acquired a certain amount of these car washes, all of a sudden he didn't have a 4x multiple. He had a like a 15x multiple. You know,
Yeah,
after a
100%. Yeah,
certain number, for whatever reason, you hit a threshold where these larger check writers are
yeah,
looking for this, and it fetches a much greater multiple because they kind of know what they need to do to really take it to the next level. They've got that experience, or they're bundling them up with more inventory nationwide and then selling it off to an even
yeah.
larger portfolio holder that's just looking for like the cash flow, like you said. So it's very, very interesting. Real quick, what's the name of the mastermind, the business acquisition mastermind that you're in?
Contrarian thinking. It's
Contrarian thinking.
yeah, it's Cody Sanchez is like the face of it. You can find her on the internet. I'm 100% sure if someone were to search Cody Sanchez on the Instagram or whatever, like she's got a very a lot of presence there. So they put out a ton of free stuff, and also it's, I mean, it's a really valuable community. And interesting, kind of to piggyback on what you said, Brandon, about those that car wash owner that you said that has 300 car washes. I mean, that's exactly one of the potential scenarios that I see in our fund, right? So like, again, I know construction. If I bring in several different, general contracting, a roofer, a plumber, an HVAC company, and can bring them all into, sort of under one umbrella. First of all, you're going to save if all your marketing and your back office stuff goes through one channel, you're going to save money there. You build the crews out, but then you're exactly right. Like if you buy a business for, $1 million, but then you create this conglomerate or sorry, you buy a business that's got $1 million in revenue annually, and then you create a conglomerate that's, generating 20, 30 million, you are going to be able to sell that for a higher multiple. So
Yeah.
you can essentially create money out of air just by bringing the pieces together. It's not that easy, but yes, you can definitely do that.
Well, what are the advantages of combining real estate in this fund with the acquisitions of these cash flowing small businesses?
One of the big advantages is going to be tax benefits. So you're gonna have a lot of tax benefits from your businesses as well, but they are likely to. The whole point is, right, we want cash flow off of them, and so
Yeah.
you can offset any tax obligations you might have from, depreciation from real estate. Certain businesses are going to have their own depreciation, some more than others, but
Mhm.
if you're in uh, a foundation, you buy a foundation business and they're going to have a lot of heavy equipment. There's a lot of
Yeah.
depreciation there, but like there's not a lot of depreciation in hammer and nails. So it just really depends on, it's not a lot of depreciation in, nail polish. There's certain things that you can couple together to create that. But then ultimately, again, you're going to get appreciation over time of that real estate. So it's to me, it was with the idea was just really to bring the best of both worlds together. A lot of people, I look at, some people look at it this way. I don't know I look at real estate investment as my long-term strategy, but I've got to generate income to put into that real estate.
Yeah.
And so this, to me, it puts them together. It brings those two pieces together into one place and gives people diversity, without having to say, I'm going to go buy a business myself, or I'm going to buy this, property myself. It allows for that hands-off approach for them.
Yeah, because it's interesting because looking at just a pure real estate fund, multifamily, let's just take, for example, you acquire these apartments and you've got some cash flow that's coming into the fund from the rents that usually gets distributed to the investors, right? Their preferred return. But in this case, you've got the option of having the real estate that does that in here, and then another asset that's probably cash flowing more than real estate. Real estate doesn't traditionally cash flow much. Businesses do. They
Right.
have much greater cash flow. So it's an asset that's literally generating profit that the fund can then use to do, go buy more assets. It almost like is a self-compounding vehicle. So that's very, very interesting. What are you with these small businesses that you're acquiring, like what are the risks and how do you mitigate that? There's a
Mhm.
lot of people that are looking to buy a business out here. I mean, I've like one of our uh, partners that we've got that we've done some deals, she's out trying to like buy a business right now because everybody knows that there's never been a greater time to be in private equity. The baby boomers are retiring. They're getting old. They, like you said, have these great businesses, but they didn't want to grow. They're just tired, right? They just want to sell. They just want to get out of it, right? But they've got this long-standing customer base. And all it needs is just a touch of modernization and a little bit of sweat equity to go and kind of grow it. And you can create huge value there. My uncle, for example, just sold his HVAC business and he sold it for like a 4x multiple of what his EBITDA was. He just didn't care, right? He probably could have gotten more for it. He just wanted out. He just wanted to get out from underneath it, retire, move on his way. And that's happening every single day. So, curious to get your thoughts on the risks and how you mitigate that.
Yeah, so I think there's probably two sides to this. There's the financing side, and I think that's a big thing that we've all maybe become more familiar with than we want to, over on the real estate market over the last few years. With small businesses, you have generally two options for finance. You can either do an SBA loan or seller financing. I think there's pros and cons to each. SBA loans are actually pretty high leverage. You can typically leverage them at 90%. You could argue that that's a risk, or that it's a pro or a con, because we hear a lot in real estate, don't over leverage yourself. But again,
Mhm.
you're looking at these businesses from a cash flow standpoint. And so it's a little bit of a different perspective on that. But you can also do an SBA loan with 20% down or 30%. Like you can structure it however you're comfortable with. So the big probably negative I think people talk about on the SBA loans is they are personally guaranteed. So if you have a home, another business, whatever it is, like if you were to default on that loan, they first take the business assets, but then they'll come to your personal assets. So a lot of people don't like that, especially people coming from the commercial real estate space who are used to like the non-recourse loans that we see
Yeah.
there. Um, Seller financing is a really great option. However, most of the time sellers want a larger down payment. So they're going to want to have enough to, um, you know, walk away with a big chunk of money after paying their taxes and the broker fees and all of that. So there's certain expenses like any other transaction that they would have to pay. So there's um, pros and cons to each on the financing side. The operational side, I think a lot of it just comes down to what you know. And like I said, I'm not going to buy a tech business. I don't care how
You stick to
busy.
what you know, what your background is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to work in the spaces that I understand. And so then, your risks are going to be industry dependent, but the big ones are going to be things like manpower. Just, I mean, it is um, challenging in almost any industry right now to have the manpower to, sort of accomplish the work that you need to. I think that's true, definitely true in the construction industry. So your risk of, not being able to keep up with the jobs that are there. You have a risk of increases in, with inflation, increases in supplies, and the construction industry can be hit by that. Any industry can be, but I think ultimately there are specific things. So that's where I think it's really nice. That's why I pointed, I guess, to the underwriting side of this is like we are looking at how it is exactly today, right? Like not I'm not buying a business based on what I think it could do in 5 years from now. I'm based on what did it do last year? And do I think that can continue to happen? And then the multiples are typically based on risk and demand. And so, like you said, your uncle sold an HVAC company. HVAC companies are super hot right now. Like I would personally probably stay away from them right now because they're so hot. I don't imagine that'll last forever, but that's like in the construction industry, that's like the I don't know, the princess right now that everybody seems to want to get in the HVAC side. Funny enough, like 3 years ago, that was happening in the veterinary world. There was
Huh.
the multiples to buy a veterinary practice had skyrocketed, like gone from like 3x to 10x for basically no reason other than there was a lot of demand. And so but then that dropped back down, sort of, I don't know, within the last year or so to a more normal, historically normal
Yeah.
multiples. Uh, so, I mean, I think those are some of the big ones. I genuinely do think that you are going into the business acquisition with more eyes wide open than you might be able to in, say, a commercial real estate transaction.
Yeah. Man, this is very cool stuff. Thanks for sharing everything.
Yeah.
If people want to learn more about you, Jason, learn more about your fund, these type of opportunities, maybe they want to get involved, where can they go?
Everything's on our website, so they can go to larkcapital.com or email me directly, jason@larkcapital.com. That everything is there. We tried to really make it pretty user friendly on the website.
Okay, very cool. Jason, it's been a pleasure having you on the show today. Thanks for coming on.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Brandon. I appreciate it.